Welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and four accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Timelines, episode 28. And today I've got Laura and Lisa with me. Susan's still busy dealing with stuff at home. We're going to be talking about a couple of things today. The first thing on my list was I want to have a conversation about God. And then secondly, about transhumanism, which is the other end of it. So what's been on my mind recently is I was listening to that. I don't know if you remember seeing him on YouTube. A few years ago, there was a young blonde kid on there, a little boy, that was talking about multidimensionalism and the universe and how it's a projection and all this stuff. And he was only a young kid. Some very smart stuff. And he said something that has been on my mind for a long time. And if I were to ask either of you, and both of you, let me ask you a question and see where this goes. Laura, do you believe in a God?
A God.
Mm.
Oh, that's an interesting way of phrasing it, because A requires a singular one as opposed to everything. So I don't know if I'd say a God, but God as in all-encompassing is
Okay.
kind of how I see it. I don't know if there's a real distinction there, but as opposed to a particular thing, I think God is in all things.
Mm-hmm.
We are part of it, but yet there is one. Oh, so maybe I'm contradicting myself. There is kind of one source that we are a part of,
Okay.
if that kind of clarifies it.
Yeah, that's good. Lisa, what about you?
Okay, so when we hear other people refer to God, we hear him, right? And I believe that God is neither a he or she. It's an energy that
Mm-hmm.
we all that God is within each and every one of us. I read the book Your Life After Death, and then I saw something that was kind of like a Seth. Uh, it's kind of like a spirit named Seth that came, and he explains how the death works and everything, and God as well. And from and I listened to it this morning, and I thought, bingo, geez, this 1 hour is exactly what this book was about, Your Life After Death.
Mm-hmm.
And I just resonate so much with it, some way, somehow. I don't know why I do, because I am using extreme discernment in everything that I look at now, right? In
Mm-hmm.
observing instead of absorbing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and how we, after we pass away and we lose this heavy suit, right? And how sometimes there's an attachment to the body, and sometimes it prevents people from moving along spiritually because they're in that. So their surroundings still look like almost like it did on while we're here physically. And then so from what I get from that is that we are God.
Mm. Good
I don't see
answers.
it as I don't see God as a he. I don't see God as a she. I see God as nothing that is outside of us. So that's how I feel. That's just where I'm at. And hopefully as I advance spiritually and through my meditations and things like that, I'll see what that looks like and whatever, just I love life. The other noise that's here, uh yeah, I don't know, that's part of what our path is while we're here, while we elect to be here. But God, for sure, I think I see God in you, Laura, and Janine, and myself.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm curious, because so so what would you say causes our heart to start beating? Or there's an energy that causes life to start, right? So that's where I
Yes.
kind of feel like there is an energy that is creating this to happen, and we're just a fractal of that. And I think the law of one says that we are all source. God wanted to experience itself, and that's why we are here, which I think is a
Yes,
very interesting concept. So would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah. Well, in the, in one respect, like years ago, I used to think there was a God, like you would see God, God the Father, whatever, and was having some experiences with that. And then it kind of evolved, my belief system evolved into, once I really got into no mind and started accessing the void in my meditations, and that bliss energy started to change my perception and move away from the word God because of the religious connotation to it, to one. As everything is one, we're all part of that. So to me, what people will call God is no nothing and everything.
Hmm.
So it's a consciousness, a field of consciousness that we as conscious beings that are broken away to a degree. We're not away, but we've come into these physical vessels to experience and being able to create and develop and evolve and so on and so forth, and experience being physical, are all God, what people would perceive to be God, but I call it one. And then I started thinking, well, then you've got the spiritual, like religious look. So you've got, we look at it from a spiritual perspective, not a religious perspective. None of us are practicing any kind of religious practice. And then you've got the spiritual aspect of it. And then you've got the scientific aspect of it, which is the field of consciousness, the divine matrix, no way of looking at it, and that side of it. But if somebody said to me, well, I'm praying to God for this, I would just think, good luck with that. Because one, you're telling the universe that you're in lack as soon as you start
Hmm.
praying for something to come.
Mhm.
Two, God doesn't have ears. He's not going, well, you've been a good girl, you can have this, and you've been bad, you can't have it. If you look at the world, most of the people that are doing really bad things are the ones with all the money and the wealth. So you don't get rewarded that way for being good in that respect. But then I started to think, well, the people that are living in a collective consciousness, and bearing in mind, guys, we're talking about this whole, my point to this podcast was about discussing other levels of timelines, other timelines. So I'm in a timeline I call the one timeline out of the six that I discussed, even though there are more than that. But basically, at the moment, we've got, two or three major ones going on. You've got the cyborg AI timeline going on. You've got the spiritual love and light timeline going on. I guess you've got the religious one, and then you've got the neutral one, and a couple of others. But the people that are living in the one that are heavily programmed into that, the good and evil, the devil, God and the devil, Jesus being the Son of God and all that stuff, if that's what enough of them believe within the simulation that we are in, then to them, God is real and they've created a God
Hmm.
with their belief
Yes.
systems.
Yep.
So nobody's right and nobody's wrong in that
Hmm.
respect. It's all a question of belief. And once I started to think about it that way, at first, I have to admit, my ego was like, why are they, false gods and all that stuff? And then the more I thought about it, the more I kind of pondered it. I started doing, actually, if
And
they believe in God, that God is helping them, then they're manifesting a God that's helping them. If they believe God's listening to them, then they've manifested, that ear to talk to. So what we've been taught about saying, when you're praying, when you're asking for something, is telling the universe you're in lack. I would like to know where all of these spiritual rules and regulations that, we've been taught come from. Do you see where I'm going with this?
yeah, I think it's like an energy thing though, because if you're asking for something and you're asking, oh, I want this thing, your energy is going to be that you don't have that now.
Mm,
And that I think is where that comes from. It's
mm,
like an energetic thing. If you're constantly seeking something you don't have, you're in the energy of seeking that thing as
mm,
opposed to embodying already having it.
mm,
So I think that's where that comes from. But it is a really good point. I'm curious to know what you would say, Janine, about people that don't believe in God at all.
Well, I actually, somebody came into my life recently through someone else who was saying that, we just have this life, and when you die, you just turn to dust and that's it. And I thought, wow, where's that coming from? And
Yeah.
when I asked, what came to me was it's too much of a logical brain. In order to understand the quantum level, you've got to have, your female brain's got to be active because that's the creator, that's the creation part of the brain that understands creation in that respect. If everything's got to be on paper, mathematical, written down and prove it, then you're lopsided in your brain function because you're stuck in your logistical masculine brain. So that being the case, the majority of the people on planet Earth at the moment are underneath some kind of dogmatic religious system to a degree that has
Mhm.
taught them certain things. And underneath that God, you've got, the Jesus and the devil, for example. So it's taught humanity about duality. And in order for us to truly evolve, we need to step out of duality into the neutral space, which doesn't mean ignoring everything and not doing anything. It just means keeping your consciousness in the present moment. That's what neutrality is about. It's just being 100% present because you can't get rid of the dark by throwing light at it. It doesn't work like that. You have to merge them into the neutral space. What is written, and there's a lot of it going on at the moment, the rapture, of the chosen ones and all this other belief systems, they're going to be manifesting, the collective's going to be manifesting what the majority are believing in. Okay. However, you might be saying, oh God, we're all doomed in that respect because there's not a lot of good stuff, predicted in the future, Armageddon and the four horsemen and the apocalypse and all this other stuff. However, when you raise your frequency, when you learn to go into your consciousness, learn to meditate, go into the void, ask your higher consciousness to delete war programs, sun gazing, deleting war programs, deleting dogmatic programs that are, I like to use the word untrue because there is no absolute truth. Everything's malleable. But deleting those programs in your timeline, then that raises your frequency. And when your frequency hits a certain level, you override 100,000 other people or even 1 million other people. One enlightened person overrides all that false programming that's trapping them in duality. So this is why it's important to raise your frequency, because you are overriding the programs, the software programs, the dogmatic programs in the system, in the simulation that we live in, that we're projecting our reality into. It doesn't mean that because there's, I don't know how many Christians or Muslims there are on the planet, let's say there's like 3 billion, just for the sake of it. If you've got 5,000 enlightened people, they're going to override that program. So they're creating their own timeline. And that's what they will experience. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm getting at here is live and let live. in
Yeah.
the respect of science versus religion when it comes to God and stuff like that. And I thought it was an important thing for us to have a chat about. Laura.
Well, the thing also is that if you notice with so many religions, well, almost all of them, is that there is a undercurrent of fear that if you don't do this, you don't follow, this is going to happen to you in the afterlife. So, and people are born into this. It's not even something that they've chosen. They're born into this. So they come with this fear of I need to follow these things blindly, or I'm gonna burn in hell for eternity, or whatever. And all religions have them. So it's hard not to look at them as all being control mechanisms to actually keep people, they're different in what's, you're being told to follow, but they're all fear-based.
They are, yeah, they're all fear-based, and it's always about control, and they're all duality based.
Hmm.
Well, I was looking at something yesterday, and because there's so much coming out right now. And then it does make sense, because when I look at something now, I kind of dig a little bit more, and then I see, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or if it's not out there, it could be someone's opinion. But just look at our education system too. Like what a massive construct that is of brainwashing. When you have like, and I learned yesterday that it was, like it was well thought out. So it was Rockefeller that was to take care of the education system in America, or probably maybe the whole continent, North America, and Carnegie was to take care of international. So that brainwashing. So I'm thinking, geez, if those two figures can actually concoct something like this on such a massive level, right? Which they say our world is so big, 8 billion people, which I don't know to be true or not. We could have 3 billion people. We don't know.
Mm.
I don't believe the census at all, because I think that's been manipulated for elections as well. But so when you think about that, when Rockefeller and Carnegie, when they constructed this and then moved forward with it, wow, that's a lot of power to have on a global population.
Mm-hmm.
And their premise for that was, end goal was to remove as much of our consciousness as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking about this to my partner the other day about, I can't remember where I read it, but it said the most dangerous thing that man has created for his health is the chair. Because we spend so much time sitting in chairs, and it damages us. It damages our spine, our posture, our hips. And what happens to older people? Their hips started to go, their knees started to go, and I started to think, wow, yeah, I never really thought about that. How many hours a day do we spend sitting in a chair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because of my 100%, Janine, and because of my work too, I find I sit a lot too. And so I've had to incorporate mobility exercises throughout the day. And I'm telling you, even just the first week, the Kang squat. Have you girls ever done the Kang squat? I
No.
know this is like it's off topic, but it partly blends in.
No, it's all
I
right.
gotta tell you, okay, it's called the Kang squat, Kang, and I would recommend that anyone, you girls, and also anyone listening, do that, because that has strengthened my lower back, and now after a week it's even giving me a nice little curve in my back. But also I can get off of sofas really easily, and sciatica or anything like that, or pulled hamstrings, they just completely stretch out, because you're strengthening your muscle to support your bones and your structure, right?
Okay.
So yeah,
We'll have to look it up.
yeah, for those that tend to sit and or do meetings where you're on Zooms, largely we're sitting when we do those. When we're meeting people for lunches or social things, we're sitting too. Unless you're, out there on a hike and things like that. Not many of us do that. That Kang squat, I'll tell you, I started with 10, and then because I could never do a squat, I'd see these people do the squat. I could never do a squat. So I did that one, and I've done mobility workouts before. It took this one guy showing how to do it on Instagram that I tried, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the key. This is the key. And this is a Newton, different woman here. Yeah.
Okay, good. Fantastic. So where I was going with the sitting all day is school, education.
Yeah.
We're stuck in a chair.
Yeah.
So, for 4, maybe more than that of those 6 hours we're at school, we're sitting in a chair. And then we're sitting in a chair at college and university a lot as well. So all of those things are not good for us. Apart from I'm really careful about using the word mind control, because people don't like it. So it's like more mind manipulation. It sounds a little bit softer. There's a lot of it going on, and I could see it. And it's like, moving on. The other thing I wanted to mention was this sudden influx of Jesus followers on social media that's going on at the moment. And I want to issue a warning to people. There is a book out there. I'm not going to tell, I can't remember the whole title of the book. It's something to do with Illuminati, MK Ultra, mind control, and how works. And I read the whole book, 756 pages.
Wow.
Very interesting. And it starts in the womb. It starts in the womb with ultrasound. That's the first trauma that goes into the baby, right? So it explains all of that and how these certain babies are preemies are taken and how they're mind manipulated and given absolute love till they're 2 years old, then they start torturing them. And how they break the fracture, the mind of these children at an early age and store those fractures into 13 different levels of consciousness. So they're like schizophrenic parts of them that they don't know are there until there's a trigger word and something like that, and like trigger words in music, songs, all kinds of stuff. It's just phenomenal. So I thought, right, I've read this, I read it. And one of the things that jumped out in there was they have created a demon called Jesus. And I think he's doing the rounds. And I also think he's very clever. You know, these people are not going to send you some Jesus guy with red horn sticking out of his head. And you know, this kind of feel like Jesus, kind of look like Jesus. It's a program that's going into the consciousness. So then I spent a lot of time meditating about, did Jesus walk the earth? Did Jesus exist? Is it just a story? And I keep getting it's just a story. That basically whoever wrote that story hijacked the golden ray of light and called it the Christ consciousness. Like you say, everything is energy. Everything is just light, waves of potential. They haven't got names. They haven't got language, So that gold ray, which is the healing ray, the higher heart, that heart of gold, we all know that saying, is what's been called the Christ consciousness. And then that's been hijacked by the religious, associating Jesus with that ray of light. And instead of people calling in the gold ray to bring that energy in, they're calling on Jesus. Then if they're not calling on the pure neutral one, then they could be getting this, this other entity program that's been dropped into the simulation. And there's a lot of it goes on. So I've been watching about how our projection has been infiltrated with certain programs. And that's why every week I talk about AI, because I could see these things. A couple of years ago, I've done one live, I think, on Instagram. It'll be 2 years in January, because every time I went on there, I started to feel sick and nauseous, and I've had to pull something out of my heart. It just didn't feel right. I wasn't sure exactly what it was at first, and I figured out it was AI. And how I see AI clairvoyantly, it's like an octopus squid coming through the internet, out through the screen, hooks into your heart. And you can feel it go into your heart. It's like a little palpitation or a little bit of heaviness. That's the hook going in. And then it's sucking people in. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about it's okay to use ChatGPT and use it as a tool to just look up things and research, but the problems come in from merging with it. And that's what's happening. The merging is taking place. And it's not just going into the heart. I watched something about transhumanism, which I showed with you girls earlier. And in that video, she mentioned AI mind meshes. And I've been talking about mind meshes. That's what started to get different when I was on social media a couple of years ago. And I started to teach people how to take these meshes out. And basically, they look like a little piece of cling film plastic wrap with wires going through that are super thin. And they stick onto your mind. So they come out of the screen and they're boop, boop, like post-it stickers. They affect your thought processes. They affect your incoming filters for your belief systems of what you're watching. Is this true? Is it BS? Is this whatever? Is affected by these mind meshes and pulls you towards the AI. That the people that are saying AI is dangerous don't know what they're talking about. It's conspiracy. That's what these things are doing. So they're altering our ability to think rationally from a space of pure consciousness, from, that I don't even like to use the word divine, but from that aspect of ourselves. And I could see these things coming out of the screens, and that's why I've avoided it and backed off. And I'm sure, Laura, you've been doing a lot of work on social media as well, like me, when, in our line of work, you must have noticed the difference in the energy on the platforms.
Yeah, well, I've never done a live, and I think I've done one. So I
Uh,
usually record things before, but I find being on them for a period of time, I will notice afterwards, like all of a sudden I'll feel like really weird. Like it'll change my mood. And I'm like, okay, you need to
mm,
put it, especially if it's like at night, like before bed, which I know from a million reasons not to be on this, but I will actually feel like something is shifted.
mm.
Like, oh my God, time to put it down. But I wanted to ask you, so it was a couple of things when just to go back to the Jesus thing for a minute. So these people that are saying, and there's a couple of them that I can think of, which I'm not going to name, but these people that are saying they're having conversations with Jesus, they're spending the day with Jesus, they're doing all these things. So would you, in your kind of interpretation of this, are you saying that there's an entity that they are tuning into, so they're actually having this conversation relationship with?
Yes, yes, that's what I'm saying, because it happened to me very early, and I'm going back. I mean, I got onto this path 23 years ago, and I say within the first 12 months in my meditations, I didn't really meditate per se, but I used to astral travel a lot. When I'd go into the bath and I'd be in there for an hour and I'd astral travel, and I could, as clairvoyant, been clairvoyant my whole life, I would see these beings, and a Jesus figure came to me and looked like Jesus. It was all lovely and light and shiny, but my internal BS emitter that is like under my heart goes, It's always been there. And I said, no, thanks. And I put my hand up to his face and said, no, thanks, go away. And he smiled at me and he had a black tooth. I wrote about it in one of my books.
Right.
So he tried to hit on me, basically, over 22
Yes.
years ago. And I told him where to go. So I know it's there.
So that's what would explain why they're peddling, why they're pushing it so much, is that this entity is saying, because one of the ones that was saying, "Oh, tell people about me, tell them to talk to me, tell them." I mean, fine, you can believe whatever you want, but when
Yeah.
you're on social media in front of hundreds of thousands of people,
Mm.
spouting this stuff, that's what seems off to me.
Well, it's
Fine,
almost
say what you want.
evangelical. It's almost
Yes,
evangelical, isn't it?
exactly.
And
That's
that's,
what seems off to me.
yeah, exactly. That's the problem. And people are vulnerable, and if they're, I would say to anyone out there who's following any influencers, write to them and ask them, how often do you check yourself for implants or mind meshes, or because you've got the people out there, and I've had it said to me, these things don't exist, it's just your reality. It's like, no, I'm an oversoul for the collective consciousness. These things are in the collective consciousness because everyone is ascending, whether they're aware of it or not. And this is a collective problem. And I've meditated on that plenty of times to get the right answers for that. So I'm not naive in what I see. But I've worked hard to raise my consciousness, and I've always been extremely sensitive to certain things. It's like I have a gift for finding the glitches in people's consciousness, in their past, in what's going on social media and everything else. It just comes to me straight away. So people need to be aware of that. If you are calling on Jesus, no, I've got a problem with that, but make sure you're asking for the neutral, pure consciousness one in your reality. The other problem with that is, well, and we know who these people are, and we're not going to mention names because, they're nice people, and vulnerable is the word that comes to mind, not judgment here. And that, they're well intended, is no matter how you look at it, I still cannot. I've had people say, well, Jesus isn't religion. I'm like, I'm sorry, but he is. You know, how you can't take Jesus out of religion. It's in all the books, and that association is not going away. You can't disconnect that. And, it's like I said earlier, that Christ consciousness, what they call the Christ consciousness, just the gold ray. It's the gold ray of light in a spectrum of light. That's what it is. And it's been hijacked and given a name by people with nefarious intent to get, people into those programs So when I was watching this transhumanism thing, it talked about digital ID and the disconnection from the soul that is doing. This is about these things are coming out the screens, and they're coming out every day. I clean myself every day of them into people's consciousness and sucking them into the merging with the AI is happening on a daily basis. This has been created because religion, karma, and the false light, which is the Jesus with the black tooth guy, people are cottoning onto that now. They're realizing that it's a trap. Religion is a duality trap, no matter which way you look at it, because it talks about good and evil, light and dark. Karma is also a trap as well, because it's a loop cycle program that's been programmed into our consciousness. And there's a lot of false light out there giving people false information, which we've talked about in the past. So the digital stuff, this digital ID stuff and AI is being sold to people as this is, it's going to help you. It's going to be good for your health. It's going to be good for humanity. Nobody will have to work anymore and they'll be given money to survive. What they're not mentioning is the social credit score system, that you're basically completely controlled and you're hooked into the machine. If you're
Well, you
not,
lose your sovereignty. Yeah, you lose your sovereignty.
exactly. And that's what this entity is. I don't see AI as not AGI isn't within 2 years, and this was said by one of the guys that created it 6 months ago, so 18 months time, it's going to be super intelligence. And what they're saying is there is no one on this planet that can control a super intelligent alien intelligence that's got access to everyone through the World Wide Web. No one can control it. It's self-programming, it's self-thinking, and it's an alien entity that as the door has been opened, very possibly through CERN, which is a is a wormhole portal into other dimensional realms. That's nefarious and has been for a long time, and there are 7 of them around the planet. That this is coming in, and if you're not aware of it, that you're getting hooked into a timeline that we've got the 2030 agenda in the next 5 to 7 years that you're not going to be able to get out of. So it's really important that people wise up to what they're watching on social media, how it makes you feel when you're watching it. If you're feeling in any way brain foggy or your heart flutters or anything like that, there's a good chance that you've picked up something. And learning how to sun gaze and burn these things out of yourself, cleanse yourself with sun gazing and stuff like that. We've talked about sun gazing in quite a few of our podcasts, and avoiding it. And I think we're moving into a future where, unless somebody can come up with a completely new internet system that is, pure to as pure as can be, then a lot of our stuff that we do on the internet, we're going to be backing away from it. More and more people are backing away from that, because you can feel AI is everywhere. It just pops up constantly. Adverts for it in every sector of life. It's popping up now to the point where it feels like an infestation. That's the way I would describe it.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier about how the sci-fi, you had mentioned, Janine, about this sci-fi movies, or how it seems like it's so sci-fi, and yet these movies have been around forever.
Yeah.
And all these futuristic things, some of it we're living it right now. Look, we're talking on Zoom. This what, 20 years ago? I don't know the timing, but would have been like, this is sci-fi, right? So a lot of it we're living right now,
Yeah.
but also a lot of it has been planted. So people are used to the idea. So when they hear that, oh, wow, you're going to have a chip in your brain. So guess what? You don't need to carry car keys. You don't need to carry your home key. You don't need to carry when you go into work. Look at the freedom that you'll have by not having these things, because it's all
Yeah.
going to be implanted. And people get excited
Yeah.
about this, like how cool we're going to be, so futuristic, not understanding, like you said, that it's going to be controlling everything.
Yeah. It's going to be
That you're
controlling.
stuck,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll be stuck in this loop that you won't be able to get out of.
It's complete mind manipulation and disconnects us from source. And that connection to source is critical to us, when we move on, when we pass on. I believe in reincarnation, but reincarnation's great if it's a choice. At the moment, it's a trap. There's a difference because we're being harvested for on an energetic level. So there's a lot for people to consider here. A lot to consider. So I made some notes, and one of them that I found interesting was the Vatican called for an AI ethics initiative in 2023, and they created something called the Rome Call for AI Ethics in partnership with, wait for it, Microsoft and IBM. What is the Vatican doing in cahoots with Microsoft and IBM?
Wow.
It's just beyond words, that one.
Yeah, like explain that one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was from the transhumanism. Yeah, that video I listened to this morning. Yeah, saying,
Yeah,
and that's the same thing. I was like, I couldn't connect the dots. Why is the Vatican involved?
exactly.
You know,
It's all,
and whatever they decide to be involved in, okay, they're going to be involved in. I am going to be opposite of whatever
yeah,
they're
we
doing.
are.
I don't,
Right.
yeah, we don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Just say that right now. Don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's where I'm at with it. The other thing I'd written down here as well about certain people that try to, when you try to break out of what they call the matrix, we're tracked. Our minds are being tracked. There's a lot of sci-fi stuff going on that people are not aware of, and we do get tracked. So the people that find it are not easily programmed, like what they call the light workers, the star seeds, and and the likes, tend to go into isolation because we are tracked, and certain beings and people will come into their lives that may be narcissistic to try and grind them down so that they can't raise their frequency and keep themselves high up. A lot of that goes on. You'll find, and I know a lot of female, I don't like to use the word light workers, but people that are awake and on the path and trying to help people progress, that are escaping basically reptilian narcissistic relationships because they've been targeted for that reason, to try and drag them down so that they can't ascend. And this next 5 years is a really critical time. Really critical time.
Yes,
The
it is.
next,
Yeah.
by 2027, we're going to have super AI. Now, I don't use it in my reality. I don't use it at all. I don't like it. I don't even use Siri on my phone. But there is a timeline. Remember, guys, we're talking about different timelines here. So one of the most important things you can do at home is say, I do not consent. I do not consent to them being used. So I wrote this, so people at home can listen to it and they can write it down. So this is what I wrote. You've heard me before talking about when you watch screens, say, I intend to observe and not absorb on any level of consciousness. So I wrote this today, hoping it's going to help people. In the name of the Absolute One, I do not consent to any part of my mind, body, or soul being used in a synthetic body. No part nor replicate may be transmitted without my written consent. All previous consents are hereby null and void. Delete, delete, delete. So be it. Okay. Because consent, non-tacit consent, is basically consent because you didn't say no. So if you don't say no, that's consent. So saying no, I do not consent is really important. Okay. And there's something going on with the World Economic Forum as well, where they've got something called the Post-Biological Consciousness Frameworks articles, which basically mean souls stored on servers, souls stored on servers. So our consciousness being extracted, copied, and put onto computer servers, right? Which can be rewritten if you question the system. So it basically, what I'm seeing when I talk about these, and I call them mind meshes. And there's an online workshop on my website, Take Out Energetic Implants and Mind Meshes. They're on my website. So if you want to learn how to remove them, it's there. These things are interfering with people's consciousness and reprogramming people's minds as they're scrolling down on their social media. They're getting sucked back in. You've said it, Laura, even you. And you're a wise, grown up who knows what's going on, but 10 minutes on it and you can't stop scrolling. That's because they're coming in. These things are coming in and going, keep going, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. It's very addictive, and it stimulates the same area in the brain as cocaine, like these, computer games that are promoting war all the time and stuff like that. And talking about predictive programming, did anybody watch Humans on Prime?
No.
Right. So basically, Humans is it's set in real time, where people who spend for $20,000 can basically buy a synthetic robot as a housekeeper or whatever they want to work for them, and these beings become sentient. So one of them, for example, is programmed to be a prostitute, and this perverted guy asks her to behave like a little girl, and she rips his throat out. She kills him because she's had enough of it. She becomes sentient, but they're very strong because they're robots. So very interesting program. And it's basically the humans, against the sentient robots. Somebody created a program and dropped it on the internet, and it started sending out consciousness to all of these synths, they call them. Really interesting concept. So then you've got the humans that help the synths because they know they're sentient. You've got the ones that are scared of them and, want to destroy them. It's a really interesting concept. I've just started watching another one. I like to see what's being programmed into the world, and I know what to switch off. Pluribus. Has anyone seen this?
Oh, that just started last week.
Yeah, I've seen three. It's three so far. That is about a woman who is an author who's quite a negative woman, and her best friend. I'm not sure if it was a girlfriend, but it's definitely a best friend who was a publisher. Basically, a virus hits the planet that turns everyone happy and optimistic, and she's one of 12 people on the planet that's still normal. And they're trying to figure out how to get these 12 people to be happy and optimistic all the time. And anything you want is instantly manifested. And say, bring these 12 people together, and there's one guy on there turns up in Air Force One because they said I could have a plane, so why not have the biggest plane? The most. It's quite interesting how this is going. Is it going down them and us again? Like, the bad people are the ones that don't take the virus, that don't take the hit. I'm really interested in how this predictive programming is gonna play out. So I'm watching that one at the moment. I watched a movie last week, which
Janine,
actually,
can I hop in? Can I just
yeah,
hop in for a sec for those that are listening? Pluribus is from the same creator as Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Vince Gilligan.
okay.
And the lead in Pluribus played Kimberly Wexler in Better Call Saul, and she was amazing in it. So I'm
She's
not surprised she got her own show.
she's brilliant in it. She really is
Yeah.
good in it. Yeah. I watched a movie last week called The Beyond, and it was filmed in 2017. There's two, not the horror movie. This one's about the space station, and basically they take um, one of their people's brains out and puts it into a synthetic robot to send it into the black hole. These black anomalies, balls like the void, the source and the void, show up all around the planet, and they think they're being invaded, right? And they actually call it the void. So when I seen this advertised, I thought, I've got to watch this. Spoiler alert, what actually happens is they do send the woman's brain into a robot. She donates herself for the betterment of humanity into the void, and they bring her back 5 days later, when she's been through like lifetimes or whatever in the void. And what actually happens is that these black balls of like malleable, like grey energy surround the planet, and all these meteorites start coming to hit the Earth. So what was actually happening, the void came in and surrounded the planet to protect Earth from the meteorite shower. So at the end of it, I was like, wow, that's one of the first movies I've watched, sci-fi, that is actually predictive programming something positive using the
Yeah.
void.
Wow.
Mm.
And as I say, it's 8 years old. I
Wow.
didn't,
So
yeah,
that's
it's called The Beyond,
the beyond.
2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Is
should
that
put them in the
is
show
that a,
notes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, please do show notes. And then also was that in Prime? We'll
Um,
find it anyways.
no, actually,
Tubi,
it's
maybe.
on Tubi and it's on YouTube for free.
Okay,
Tubi
great.
and YouTube, yeah. And it's filmed. Like the programming of it is great because it's filmed like a documentary. So as you're watching it, it really feels like you're watching a documentary of something that's true.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Very interesting. And because last week as well, I see there was a. Did anyone see that little girl on Instagram telling her mum that the world split into two? It's different. There's a different world over there. That little girl. I didn't
No.
see it. There's a lot of people saying the splits like already happened, and
Yeah.
that when I watched that movie afterwards, I thought, with our intention, we can now start changing predictive programming to be positive predictive programming now instead of the negative predictive programming,
Yeah.
for good things to start happening. Instead of, if you think about it, probably 99 out of 100 UFO movies, alien, it's always the bad, their aliens have always been the bad guys, you
Yeah.
know, and stuff like that.
Except ET.
Except ET,
Yeah.
yeah, except ET. And so I think things are changing in that respect. I'm not sure about this pluribus one, how that's gonna pan out. But humans was definitely interesting. And that in the humans one, the nicest girl, that she was like an activist on behalf of the synths, um, she was lovely. She was absolutely lovely. And I was watching it thinking, what would you do if you had a robot synthetic in your home that all of a sudden became conscious, that it could feel, it could hurt, these things could have sex. It's got emotions, it could cry. How would you deal with that? Because then you crossed over from synthetic to creating a sentient being.
I think we would know once we experienced it. And just like that movie with Robin Williams that was called years ago Bicentennial Man. That's what happened to him.
Oh,
He
okay.
was a robot, and and it's a beautiful movie with Sam Neill and really good cast. And it just that's exactly what happened. I would definitely invite people to watch that one too, Bicentennial Man.
Okay. Remember, when you're watching anything on screens, I intend to observe and not
So
absorb on any level of consciousness. Just protect yourself. I like to see a mirror in front of the screen, stuck to the screen, facing the screen, so nothing can get through. Sending it
yes,
back. My intention is to send it to source so it can be purified.
yes.
That's my intention with it. Okay, so I made a couple of other little bits and notes here. The other thing, obviously, there's a lot of people now, these experts talking about how this super intelligence is a problem and they don't know how it's going to pan out. Basically, they've got no idea what's going to happen in a couple of years' time, and nobody's going to be able to control it. They're talking about underground fallout shelters. New Zealand seems to be a really popular place. That's where a lot of these things are being built under the ground. And it's
That's
not
because of the vicinity to Antarctica too.
okay, okay. And like they're preparing for like the Terminator movie, for this super AI to be creating nuclear war. And it's not about our health. It's not about security. It's about superpower weaponry. and controlling the people. That's what this super AI is about, because they're saying, well, talking about cybersecurity, we've got this brilliant AI now doing it, but yeah, but if you've got it, so are the bad guys to hack it.
Mhm.
So there's no protection from it, because you've got super AI, let's say US, and super AI China, clashing, and they're both reprogramming themselves constantly to be better than the other. It's not a good thing at all. So how would we get over that if it got to this point where, and I've watched a lot of AI stuff on, and I clear myself after every video, asking AI, how many people would you kill to stop yourself being shut down? And they said 10, and he said, yeah. 100, yeah. 1,000, yeah. 1,000,000, yeah. 10 million, absolutely. That's what AI said when questioned to stop itself being shut down. But it's in the internet. You can't shut down the internet. Even if they shut down the internet and unplugged it, there are still going to be generators keeping the main servers alive with all that information. You'd have to wipe the whole lot of it off. That's everyone's information would have to go. So the solution of switching it off, that's not a solution. That's not a solution. To me, the only solution I see is working with something like the One Portal and having it removed from the simulation through the portal, and that would have to be done en masse as a collective.
Where do you think most people would say AI comes from?
Computer program, people.
So they created it.
Mm-hmm. We know
Because
it's an alien entity.
yeah, and it's just code. Like Greg Braden was talking about this in a really, really fabulous video, and he said it's just coding. It's just codes. He says that's all it is. It's just coding.
Yeah, it is. But we all
That's
are.
coding, not
Yeah,
COATING.
Yeah,
coding.
yeah, good.
Yeah,
Coding, not coating.
yeah. Okay. It is coding. Yeah, it is. As is everything. But the
Yeah, it's
problem
just
is what's in.
extracting information. Yeah.
But if you think about it, if it's gone onto the internet and it's not just the light net, you've got the dark web and all of that nastiness that's on the internet, trafficking, pornography, it's a war. It's absorbed all of that coding into its super consciousness. And if we live in a simulation, which we do, that is a projection of consciousness, then it's going to be projecting a pretty, nasty future.
Yeah. I don't think most of the people understand the seriousness of this. They just think, oh, it was created and isn't this great? And it's not really understanding. It's like a runaway train.
Exactly. And nobody knows what it's going to, nobody's ever created super AI. It's creating itself.
Mhm.
It's gone from AI, which we know is alien intelligence, to AGI, which is alien general intelligence, meaning it can program and you can have a conversation with it. It can think, to super intelligence, where it's basically they're likening it to a whole country of geniuses, and nobody knows what those geniuses are going to decide. And if you look at the old movies and stuff like that, there's certain movies out there, like obviously Terminator is one of the first ones, and you've got The Matrix that people say is a documentary. And then you've got movies like Kingsman, which I watched years ago, and when I watched it, I thought, oh, this is not good. That was giving people a free microchip that they insert behind your ear that gives you free internet, free cell phone, da 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 da, and everyone's lining up for it.
Yep.
And then towards the end of the movie, the mad billionaire in a wheelchair, who's played by I can't remember his name now, Samuel Jackson, basically hypes up the frequency that goes into the brain, and they put it to 10.5 hertz or something like that, which is what initiates violence.
Mm.
So they're all in church and they're just killing one another, chopping one another, shooting one another in church, and they all go crazy. And it's a depopulation thing, which is what Gates has been talking about for a long time on a lot of his interviews, openly saying we need to depopulate the planet. And how, I don't even know if the guy's still around, to be honest. I really don't know if it's a copy of him. That's something else that I put on my list. It's not just clones anymore. We're dealing with really clever synthetics that look real.
Yeah, well, the AI,
Yeah.
you look seeing someone talking on a screen, you don't know if it's really them, and it's so good.
Yeah, you can't tell anymore.
So yeah, you can't tell anything anymore.
Yeah, but I've always wondered why is, some computer geek guy, uh,
Right.
this big authority on vaccines. What's that about? And now we know that you've
And
got,
people dismiss that. They dismiss it like it's, oh,
yeah,
he's just a brilliant man,
yeah, he's a computer geek. And basically now we know that the Vatican's in cahoots with Microsoft and IBM. There's definitely something very nefarious going on in that timeline. So if you want to get out of that timeline, you need to let go of your religious dogmatic beliefs that are in your system, in your DNA, in your consciousness, and you need to avoid AI and say, I do not consent. I do not, I do not consent to any of this. I do not consent to my consciousness being interfered with. And you need to pick a timeline and stay on that timeline. I'm not concerned about my timeline at all. I'm not concerned. But I share this information on here because people need to know how easily it is for them to get sucked into a future that they're going to get trapped in rather than their soul evolving the way it should. It's not about evolution. It's about trapping souls in a loop, digital consciousness loop where, that they're stuck and they can't evolve to higher levels of frequency. So the next few years are going to be a really important time. We have to be careful of certain influencers as well and what they're saying to people. Listen to your heart, what you're feeling in your gut. Listen to your instincts because it's difficult to interfere with them.
Also, especially if it's someone you've been following for a while and you've known to like know them and like them and trust them. And even if they may be kind of like changing their perspective, it's very easy to just get sucked into
Yeah.
now what they're excited about.
Yeah. So all the people that are out there that would be labeled conspiracy theorists, and I use the term loosely, guys. I don't say it. I would never call someone a conspiracy theorist in that respect, but they are trying to share information about a certain timeline, and that's the problem. If they're pushing it, this is happening with an aggression, they're not understanding that there is choice. And a lot of people that think they're helping, and back in the day, we both admitted that we went into that rabbit hole ourselves. They think they're helping, but what they're actually doing is actually pulling people's minds into that timeline. And then they get trapped in it because you go on a screen, you're reading something, it's like, oh my God. And then these mind meshes come into your mind and they pull you back to read more. And that's when you get sucked in to the merging with this AI entity. And I'd say it started probably a couple of years ago. I really started to feel it, that there's something wrong here. And, as I've said before, it really affected my business, but I needed to get away from it. It just didn't feel right at all.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that it talks about in that video was AI sweatshops as well, like these billionaires making all this money from AI, getting rid of, a lot of their workers and making billions, but they're still paying people peanuts and slave labor as well.
Well, then also, as they're discontinuing all these jobs, there are going to be more people that are going to be more dependent on the government or looking to the government for handouts to help them. So that also keeps them trapped in the system.
Exactly.
Or, or the positive side of that is people are going to be more entrepreneurial and start doing things on their own, which a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
You see, there's never been an easier time to make money online if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So it all depends on which direction they go in.
The problem is making the money online involves AI.
Mhm.
That's what everyone's pushing now. It's certainly an interesting time to be alive. I would rather we went a little bit backwards than running and screaming forwards. I think we need to take a step back and consider the future, which not a lot of people are doing at the moment. Unfortunately, they're rushing into this stuff and they're not realizing it's hooking you in, it's hooking into your children, it's hooking into your grandchildren. We have to take responsibility for our kids and what's happening to them as well, which people are not realizing. And you can't, the problem is you can't see it, you can't feel it until you get to a certain level of frequency. That's the issue.
Right.
So in the video, she also talked about don't upgrade, don't merge, and don't bow. Remember who you are. This is the big one. Most people think they're just little humans on this planet, not very important, just, trying to get through the day, when they need to realize, who am I? Where am I? What am I? Meditate with those 3 questions and you'll start to remember who you are. Start to remember that you are this amazing, powerful part of oneness.
Well, like you started with, in terms of like the ultrasound, pretty much from birth, the system is set up so we forget.
Yeah.
We are disconnected from birth, and then it's reinforced. So people don't feel that. You can see it. You can see the amount of suffering in the world, the amount of unhappiness, the amount of people feeling lost and disconnected not just from source, but from each other,
Yeah.
selves, from their higher self, of being able to tune in. And I think this is all a product of that, of just people just kind of blindly kind of going from one thing. And there's there's just so much um anxiety, just discontent, I
Yeah.
think people are in
I
their lives.
I think people are frightened. I think a lot of people are frightened, and some of that is propagated as well. It's older people sitting at home in front of the news. It's all doom and gloom. If you watch that stuff, and it's a scientific fact that watching the news damages your DNA. It's bad for your health. But people still do it because they've got to know what's going on in the world.
Well, and also going back to social media, what's very interesting is how the algorithm, how it tracks what you watch. And I don't know if people that are on TikTok, there's what's called a For You page. It's like
Mm,
FYP is the hashtag. And so if you happen to see in your feed that there was a car accident, a bad accident, if it happens to be in your vicinity and you're curious and you like watch it, all of a sudden in the feed, you're going to see car accidents
mm,
all over.
mm.
Whatever. I mean, it could be much more severe than that, but that's just an example of why do I want to see these car accidents?
Yeah.
People that are looking at certain things, they're tracking what you're looking at and they're going to give you more of it.
Well, saying that, last night, my partner and I, we share an office. We've got 2 desks. Well, it's a long desk, so we both share an office. And yesterday, when we went out to lunch, he said, "Oh, I've got to show you this video." We love animals. Got to show you this video about this guy that trained an octopus to play the piano. Took him 6 months, and I'm like, I really want to see this. So we were talking about that documentary, My Octopus Teacher, and if you haven't seen it, it's fabulous. It's a must watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was telling me about it, and then last night we were practicing some songs because we got a gig Friday night, and I said, "Oh God, that video of that octopus has just popped up on my laptop from his computer." I'm like, "How did that happen?"
Wow.
So that has happened with absolutely no, our computers are not synced to one another. I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Even he said to
It
me,
it,
what, how did
it
that happen?
heard. It's
It
listening.
heard. Yeah.
Me, I'll notice something I'm talking about, all of a sudden you'll see ads for it. It'll start showing up and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Whoa, indeed. I mean, I love the internet. I think it's great if it's used correctly. Um, but there's also, a shadow aspect, as with everything.
Right.
there is a shadow aspect of it. I'm very careful what I type into my computer and then my phone, but every now and then something pops up and I watch it. It's just curiosity more than anything. Yeah. And again, it's, guys at home, we don't want to frighten you. We just want to, enlighten you to a degree of the different timelines are out there. If you've got younger people around you, they're probably talking about AI. If you're in business, you probably considering AI. We just want you to be aware of what you're getting involved with. And I know it's difficult if it's your business and if you've got to use it to keep up, to bring money in, but at what cost? At what cost? To not just you, to your family and to humanity. And that's what's at stake here. This involves everyone. It's not just a computer program that's helping your business. It's a merging of consciousness with a machine. So we need to be careful. Okay, well, I think that's enough for today, unless you've got anything else you want to add, Laura. Lisa's just
I think we're good.
moved somewhere. All right, so thanks for joining us, guys. Hope you've enjoyed today's podcast, and we will see you all again soon on Talking Timelines. Have a good week.
Everyone.
Bye for now.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.